I found a website called Make It from Metal, owned by a person named Jonathan. Uh, it has some pretty cool projects on it, and there's a few of them I wanted to try. One of them is this micrometer vise or micrometer vise. Uh, the metal being used on this is stuff I received in auction, so I'm not entirely sure what it is. Though I, I do know by the end of this project, it's the most expensive project I've ever done. And it's not because of the price of the metal. Like I said, I got that at an auction. But this stuff worked hard and so fast. I actually went through about 5 drills on this, and also went through about 5 endmills on this, including a nice indexable one that I had. First of all, it was a matter of cutting the pieces for the project, and as far as the square stock goes, I cut those rough. But when it got down to doing the stuff in the lathe, I really started thinking why cut chunks out of my material? Why not just make the parts as I go here? So there's a couple parts to be made in the lathe. One's the handle, and the plants they make it out of brass, but the price of brass, ain't no way that's happening. So I did make the actual handle of aluminum, and this part here, it's just like a screw that goes through the body that actually activates the vice part of the project, and that was made out of some 4140 I have. Here I took the whole bar, right out of the lathe and put it in my vise to thread it here. And I do have to say that 6 jaw vise is working really good at keeping things centered. Um, it's way better than the either the three. Well, not the four, but way better than the three. Um, for this, I started off with one of my larger taps. One of the cutting taps, and got it to size, and then came back in with the chase and tap and followed it up, and just a matter of putting the piece back into the lathe and parting it off. And I do have to say I'm getting a lot more comfortable now with parting material at a higher speed, and it seems to be working a lot better too when I part it off at a higher speed. It doesn't seem to bind on the tooling that much. It seems like 60 is just too slow to go. So on this, the piece, it has a stop on it so it won't run through the actual body. And then on the one side, it's got like a 3/8 by 16 feet per inch thread to go into the vice part. And on the other side, it's internal 1/4 inch thread that a screw will go through the handle and into to secure. And that part of the project on the prints, it said to thread the back of the body. And it just, to me, didn't make any sense why you'd be running a 3/16 external thread on the part I just made to go in that body. Because on the one side, there's the knob handle, and on the other side, there's that disc or spacer there that, it won't let the piece thread or move back and forth in the actual body itself. So I never did thread it. Um, and I did look for an email for this guy to ask him about it, and I couldn't find one. But at the end of the day, the design that I had didn't actually work that great. What I needed to do was go back and cut a slot in my screw, and then a corresponding slot in the handle itself to pair the two up, so it wasn't just dependent on the screw to hold it together. Because anytime I'd loosen or try to loosen off the vise, it would just loosen that screw off, and that would be the end of it. And I did try a little bit of Loctite to try to keep the screw Loctite in the actual knob itself, which is what I'm creating right now on the lathe. But that didn't work that great either. got to do a little bit of research on Loctite to see if you can actually Loctite aluminum and metal together. Nonetheless, back to what I'm doing here. It's just a matter of getting this thing centered out and then getting it threaded and then parted off. And like I said, the two round parts that were done on the lathe, I just did them to completion on the lathe. That way that, like I said, there's no point really cutting off a chunk of material just to have a stockpile of the pieces I need to start cutting. So on that, you can see on the drill there, I got a little bit of blue tape, and I find this that works just great until the tape comes off. Nonetheless, yeah, there went all the cutting solution for doing this. I do have a special bottle for the aluminum, and I don't know if it works any better or not. Though during the making this, video and the making of this little vise, I ended up getting a bottle of like cutting gel. I literally went through 5 drill bits, and the work just kept getting work hardened, and eventually I went out and dropped like $100 and got a drill bit that would go through just about anything, and it did go through about just anything. But I also, bought some gel to go with it to make sure I wasn't going to cook it, and I didn't. But on this project, yeah, it was about 5 drill bits, going from just high speed steel to high cobalt to getting the best of the best. And as far as end mills, I also went through about 5 end mills on this project, and one of them didn't even last like 20 seconds. I could tell when an end mill gets dull on my milling machine, because it'll start lifting the quill, and once that happens, it's time to get that bit out of there because it just won't cut anymore. And I bought I bought a bunch of brand new end mills. But the one I put in there is a rough end mill. And it was seconds later that it was just flattened right out. And the cutting that I was doing on it was just like side to side. And shouldn't have eaten it that fast. I don't know. I think there might have been something wrong with that one. But at the same time, I also had a specially designed end mill that took inserts and it snapped in a couple of other end mills I had to just dull right out. And we're talking proper end mills for steel, not some cheap high speed steel end mills here. So next, just on this little part here, and luckily there was enough metal to make 2 of these little parts. Because when I drilled the first one out, it work hardened, and at that point, yeah, I could have got through it with a drill, but then I would have had to tap the inside as well, or thread the inside as well, and I just wasn't looking forward to doing that whatsoever. So luckily, I did have the second one really close to insides to the one I had here, and I just used it instead. Saved myself a lot of grief and probably some broken taps to try to get this thing threaded. Most of this stuff I cut over, and it'll come back later to resize it. And like I said, it was right at this point here where things started to go downhill, and drill bits started to break, and life was not that great anymore. The second one, however, did work out really good, and I was, on both. I was watching speeds on the drill as well, make sure it wasn't going in too fast. And I don't know if it's this actual material or not, but when it started heating up, I let it cool down for a bit, and I don't know if that's the point where it hardened, or if it could harden, at that point. But nonetheless, I'm very fortunate that I had two little pieces when I was actually mailing this stuff, and I just went over to the second one. Now, to get the angles to grind or to mill on these, I got these angles in a kit, and for some reason they doubled up on the I believe it was a 25 and didn't give me a 30. And you can tell it's supposed to be a 30 because there's extra space on the last one. Nonetheless, when I put this in the vise, I was dead on. It was the first time ever I've been dead on my 45 degrees. So I don't think it'll ever happen again. Or I mean, it might, but I'm not counting on it. Once again, the end mill I have in there now is that one indexable one, and that thing's just fantastic. The only problem with that thing is it's 1 inch, and I'd really like to get 1.5, one that's just a half inch. I did get one a little smaller, but it snapped right away. Like within, I don't know, 5 minutes of use, it was broken, and it was actually being pushed right to its limit in cutting this thing, like where it tapers up to go into the machine. It was basically right to the point where that thing was down into the work material to get it cut deep enough. For this, just cleaning up a little bit, uh, flattening out the bottom there, and now it's time to tap it. And the second one I did worked great. Um, got enough thread in there, didn't have to worry about it not being able to go up enough in the little vise that it fits in. And I did run the tap in there about 4 or 5 times, and just to clean out as much of that stuff if I could, and get some air in there as well and blow it out. I did get a plug tap for this to actually try to get the threads as far down as I possibly could. And of course, if there would have been an issue and I couldn't get it far enough, I would have just taken it to the grinder. For this, I'm just trying to not make as much chips as possible. So running through the saw here, and at the end of the day, I did mill both both pieces. The piece on the right there is for the project, but the piece on the left is now a piece of material I have in my bin in case I need something that size or smaller for a job coming up. Um, I would like to do something on this saw. I mean, like I know a lot of people that run their hands into saws and jointers and other wonderful tools, and it's not a pretty sight. So at some point, I would like to do something to this saw just to make it so it's a little safer. And that includes having something that will actually keep it up in that position, because right now you just on bolt the hydraulics to it and stand it up and put the base on it to cut on it, and that's it. Nothing keeps that thing from falling except for gravity. So my mister there, it's just vibrating like crazy, but it's not. It's actually not that bad on the machine. The reason that's vibrating so much is its cantilever is so far out on the left there. Like the actual electronics is on the left, and then that box for the up and down is on the left further than that, and then that mister is further out than that. So that really kind of explains why it's kind of bouncy there a little bit. Back to getting this stuff milled off, and again, it was just a matter of taking those angles and coming up with 45 and making sure it was on a 45. I do feel a lot better cutting in materials like this, going back and forth like this on the y-axis and not trying to cut on the x-axis. where if something did bind, you have a much better chance of throwing that out. So on the drawings, everything came off the front chamfer. And on that, it was marked at 0.75. And at the time I started to make this, I thought that meant that, that piece was 0.75. And, A squared B squared equals 0.75. So I did cut it like that. Later on, though, I was watching another video and seeing that on chamfers, that 0.75 is actually the depth on each side. So that's your A and your B. And you don't actually have the C squared. But for now, on this, I cut it at 0.75 and everything came off that. So once I got the measurements there, then it was a matter of coming down like 0.54 inches or something like that for the top of that cut, and then dropping another 0.5 inches for the bottom, and that cut gets put in on a 45-degree angle. It's actually a very nice looking base for this thing when everything's said and done. But I did make the mistake of not having the chamfer right, and later on I did come back and corrected it, but unfortunately that just narrowed down the distance from that chamfer onto where the micrometer goes into the holder. So again, this is where I'm going to start cutting in the groove that holds the micrometer, and this is basically where I started getting all the problems with my end mills being destroyed. Now I shouldn't say destroyed. I'm going to keep them and put them in a pile, and one day sharpen them, or if I can find someone that actually does that professionally for a reasonable price, just send them out and have them done. Because I was looking at the price of the machines for the end mills, and I know there's a company that sells, on Amazon that has a little tool they got for like $180 that they saves for end mills. But realistically, a grizzly tool for sharpening end mills, I think, was like $1,000 US, and from there the price just went up. This is the little indexing tool that I was mentioning earlier, and it's working like a charm. Unfortunately, though, that sucker snapped off, and as you can see where it's kind of beveling out here, that's just about touching that piece of metal. And it wasn't much past this point here that I was using that thing and it snapped. And for a lot of this, I realized the stuff was being fought. There's another end mill that broke. So that's two right in that short period of time. And then, like I say, a few of them just dulled right out. And that is a carbide bit too. So I think it was just not enough speed for the feed, and it would just get pushed too fast into the material, too deep, and that was the end of that. The other ones, they all just got dull over time. It didn't take too long. This material is just brutal. It did work out that I did actually finally set up the Mister for it. Now, when I'm marking these, everything's oversized a little bit here. So when I'm marking them, I'm after locking a true center. So I'm going up off that 236 plate, then measuring to the top of the work and dividing that in half, just so I make sure I get a true center measurement on there. When I actually come back later on and take these from a rough state to a finished state, that everything lines up, and I don't find that I put measurements where they don't really belong, like offsetted on the case for this one. So I don't really recall having much problems on this, but in the drawings it says that hole is actually threaded, and I just can't see why. Oh yes, I do remember that did work hardened as well, and it did take a carbide drill to get through there. But the carbide drill did get through there, saving a lot of time. So again, with all the rest of this, it's just a matter of making sure everything's centered to the piece I have, because the piece I have is not to final spec. So as far as that 246 down there, I just like being a little higher up off the table than having everything sit on the table. Just a lot easier for me. That's the only reason it's there. It's not doing anything else, but just raising that piece up just a little bit. And again, when I'm marking the center of this, I do flip it and make sure that I am on true center before I start marking. And this was like, I think, about 0.625 that needed to come off across the top here. So basically what I did is just take that line, add half 625 to it, and then raised it up, and then deducted the full 625 and put the bottom of the line in, just so I had scribe marks through when I was working. I had a good idea about where it was and where my limits were. The base here, it actually, like I said, it looks pretty good when it's all said and done. The front part of it is just a little bit taken out, and then the back part needs a lot taken out, because that's where the actual mechanics of this thing sit into. Keep the micrometer in place. But with my micrometers, anyways, when I put it in, I noticed I could still on the front read what the sizing was on that micrometer. Not that it's really a big point or anything like that, but I guess when it was designed, they probably designed it to make it look pretty as well. So after getting this thing all marked out, is going back in the vise, and I was cutting it with a 1/2 inch end mill, and I burnt out the 1/2 inch end mill. And then I grabbed another 1/2 inch end mill, and I was cutting with another 1/2 inch end mill. And it just got dull as well. So I ended up cutting with a 1/4 inch end mill, which I had on hand. And after I got down to depth, I just side cut it. And of course, this is preset. Right now, I'm not at depth. It's still rocking there a little bit. But I figured just easier just to have that thing set to where it's supposed to be, and just check it every now and again to make sure I haven't passed it. And even going past it on that part of it, on the front nose of it, that front nose piece is just for looks. It's got nothing to do with the mechanics of this vise whatsoever. And I think on this, this is where I'm down to 1/4 inch, and it just going down on the one side, then slowly working my way over. As you can see, I do have the mister set up now. I ran out and got some parts to get this thing going, because I was just getting tired of cooking end mills. That got expensive really fast. Like, those suckers are $40-50 a piece. However, I'm sure they could be sharpened. So until such time that I can either get them sharpened or buy something to sharpen with it, I'll just have them in a little box and put it to the side for now, and look at them every so often and go, why did I do that? The first chance I had to go back into that index end mill, I did. Like I said, that thing's just a workhorse. It cuts beautifully. But also, though, I did already doll out a set of inserts on that thing. And again, on my machine, when the inserts are, the end mill gets dull, you can tell, because the quill raises, it just won't cut anymore. And then it's time. I had to move my vise, so did a quick job of tramming it in. Later on, I'll go back and try to get it a little bit better. But for what I'm doing here, like, that's not bad over 5 inches. and at least it's going to do what I needed to do for this job. Next is just a matter of now most of the stuff is cut is just to get those angles cut on the sides. And again, I used my 20 and my 25 angles to get that thing positioned properly, and using that 1 inch endmill. Unfortunately, there's not enough Y axis to cut the entire piece at once. So I had to cut both sides as much as I could, then actually flip it and cut the remainder of it. Luckily, both the front and the back had cuts going down into them, so it didn't have to be in the position where, if I was 46 degrees cutting the front and 45 for the rest of it, or 44 for the rest of it, it's not noticeable because it's not continuous. So there basically is the pieces made. Next is just to get all the burn and sharp edges off. For the most part, I just use the file on this because there's a lot of angles running into each other and intersecting each other, and it just, to me, made more sense to just take a really fine file just to sand it down a bit. For some of the work, I got that little tool there for deburring, and after it was all deburred, it was just a matter of taking some steel wool and cleaning it up. I am going to blue this, and I definitely have learned my lesson about using petrochemicals before bluing, because that just causes a hell of a problem, especially with all the nooks and crannies on this thing. It would have been a horrible thing to try to get it cleaned out. So got the bluing solution, and just going to go on. I think it was about 5 applications I put on this to get it a nice dark shiny black. Well, gun blue, black, whatever you want to call it. And originally, I was putting this stuff on and then hitting it with the steel wool to polish it between applications. Towards the end, after there's just a few applications left, a soft towel worked just fine, and it actually made this thing look really nice. Then you keep in mind it was supposed to have like brass for the centerpiece and the screw bit and the knob. But with the price of brass, it had 4140 and some aluminum for the knob. I guess I could have also did the knob out of 4142, but seen a chunk of aluminum there and figured, yeah, I'll just cut it out of that. And like I said, there was supposed to be, for some reason, a thread in the back of that part. At this point, it already started happening that when I loosen the handle in the back, it wouldn't loosen the jaw of the vise. It just would spin out, and so I figured a little bit of Loctite in there, put it in so it doesn't spin. Unfortunately, that did not end up working that well, and what I ended up having to do is just put a little notch in the threaded part, and also cut a notch in the handle at all, so they made it up with each other. So when they screwed together, the two pieces kind of had a keyway sort of thing going on, and that did work. And so it's just a matter, getting through this and cutting this notch in this, and then basically this is done. Just put it together and make sure it works. There it is. Loosens off, tightens up. You can see like I said, you can see the numbers on the front to that little gateway, and that's it.